global threat. We, in Uganda, we are very well aware that government came in timely, like it has always done with all pandemics of this nature, to alert everyone. Our successes over the past year were vivid, but I think we've not managed success very well, and we have had some setbacks, and we are now experiencing what is called the second wave. It is real because now the difference between the first wave and the second wave is that it has hit hard because there was a bit of laxity after people thought we had surmounted the problem. The second wave is comes in when the threat has infiltrated communities, and not only just communities, but every home. Right now, you can't rule out that there is a home that is free of this.
Free from COVID.
We want to appeal to Ugandans to stop being cheeky in terms of dealing with the threat. This business of trying to argue, I will do this, I will overcome this. Let's be vigilant, maintain high-level discipline, and actually exercise self-restriction. The lockdowns must even be home-generated, especially the young people. Schools have been locked again, but some of the young people think it is holiday business as usual.
No, it's not.
So the bad situation, the bad news is that schools had already been infiltrated, and when the young people will begin moving around thinking it's business as usual, they will be even a multiplier. So young people who are listening, please, the lockdown means go home, stay home, and allow your parents chance to work with any other experts to do home care, so that we don't have a crisis where we are going to see people dropping dead on the streets and paths.
Okay.
Exactly.
And this can be possible. If we remain indisciplined, we can go to that extent. Right now, it's no longer a myth. You listen to every district, bodies are everywhere. So let's
terrible.
be vigilant, let's be disciplined.
Thank you so much, General. Yesterday I was talking to some experts in medical care, and they revealed to me that if you're terribly sick, if you're in critical condition, on a day they need to use about 4 cylinders of oxygen on you. So I do not think we even have that too much oxygen that if one person is going to take 4 cylinders, then what will it be for all the others? So I think we need to just take care that we do not get to levels where we need that oxygen.
Maybe what I could add, I think all the communication channels need to hype messages to augment the home care, the response, how people should respond. Because some people still think it is a shame, it is by keeping quiet, not sharing information. So I think all communication channels, the media houses, should have a message generated by our experts. The Ministry of Health has information. It should avail it to the channels where it should be.
They actually launched that strategy, that home care strategy last October. And I think, like you're saying, General, we just need to hype it because the Ministry of Health actually came out with a very good strategy for home care
the issue
management.
Is information is not yet.
We need to hype it, yes.
It must trickle down and must be what I could call in a torrent form, so that people get to know.
It sinks in their minds. Ndugu Asimwe, let me hear from you. How are you managing Gomba? You the RDC there, and of course we know that when the president speaks to us, the first people to implement the president's directives and guidance should actually be you, the representatives in districts. How is it there in Gomba?
Actually, I want to first of Well, thank you, and thank General. The information, you know, some of you who are religious, how the information of the Jesus and God moves with the Christians. If this information is domesticated so much, then people must understand. But the good thing is that a large number of population have known that now the disease is real. You know, before campaigns, people thought it was a government ploy to stop them from. But now, even those who are saying it are the ones announcing. I've heard many of the politicians also saying it is not a joke. It is no longer a joke. Because some of them either have seen people who are dying physically or they have participated at the burial.
Okay.
Or
Now,
some have become victims.
some have become victims.
themselves.
So
Yes.
I really think if we can expand this communication, it would be very, very, you know, Hosea 4:6, I know you are.
My people perish for lack of knowledge. That's
Yeah.
what it says.
Yes. So if people can be informed that this is no longer a joke.
That's
Because
what
you
the
see,
general was
Ugandans,
emphasizing here.
like General Masco, who knows how has been teaching this thing of patriotism. Like now, if your home is safe and your village is safe, you summarize a sub-county, a district, and a county. But you still have some people who want to make, like now after appointing the new cabinet, you still have people who want to converge in town to discuss who is the vice president, who is the what, the prime minister. So they want to create a cabals. Those are the ones we want to dismantle and make sure if you want the cabals, at least create it on your phone, alone, not in the trading center.
On a WhatsApp group.
Yes,
Get
on
there
WhatsApp
and talk
group.
and share stuff
Yes.
like that and they share ideas.
You know, you our people like theories and other things. So we need to make sure that we reduce crowds in these trading centers. Movements are curtailed so that you move when it is necessary. Otherwise, you remember what Jefferson said in 1809, that the objective of every good government is to make sure that the population is healthy. Now, if you are in government and people die, you are reading who? Because we have now elected, I told you.
There's a government.
We have a government, we have a forest of councillors, readers. So the readers must use their word to read.
Okay.
They should not say it is only police, military people, what, but they must make sure that if you are a chairman, LCC, because you're a chairman of security, that sub-county is safe. If you're a mayor, that town council is safe. Of course, schools are now closed and churches. So that if everybody does his work, like Jinping says, the great responsibility is the responsibility to the people, then they will know what to do. But if we don't do the above, then we enter again the Bible. We become Galatians chapter 3 verse 1. Who bewitched you?
Who bewitched you, Galatians? Ndugu Akol, let me also hear your sound on COVID-19 before I get into silencing the guns, because I think we have a problem that is with us here, and all of us need to come together, say something positive, and rally the citizens to do the best things.
Well, I must say that we should stop the issue of apportioning blame. We should also stop actually, maybe at times you see in Uganda we have a weakness that we always blame the victims. So this is the time we need to come back, we need to get together in fighting this pandemic. But also, I think the media needs to play a very, very significant role here of actually alerting the people so that the message is continuous, that people can really get to understand that yes, the pandemic is here with us. But also, I also beg that we should also give hope, because at times we may give a message and we instill too much fear. We just have to give people hope that if we do the right thing, definitely we shall survive. But if we don't really follow what has been told to us, then we may perish together.
Okay. And the problem with COVID is first and foremost, you don't know where to find it. You don't know how it gets to you. So you even can't say, I will not do this, I will not talk to General Masiko, I will not talk to Mututa or anybody. You do not know how it comes, so that's why you need to be very extra careful. Let me hear from you, Ndugu Mututa, on COVID-19, before I bring in the General now to talk about topic of the Pan-African Friday today.
I think there's also the need to listen to our experts, the health community experts, because there seem to be a lot of theories. People are theorizing, you know, when it started, people are saying, first of all, you must be an old person that you die of COVID. Then at one point they said, oh, look, I think it is for those who are traveling, because it is people who are coming from Dubai, yes, who will be dying. And then at one point they said, there are people who said, actually, remember we discussed here the issue of how the COVID was managed in Tanzania, that the church community also played a very negative role, especially in the case of President Magufuli, that there was a lot of the faith on the church, that by leaving people go to church, they will pray and God will stop this thing.
And at that particular time, I know of 6 prominent pastors who died in Tanzania in the month of April and May last year.
There was also a bishop.
Very prominent. They died of COVID, but of course playing the devil's advocate again.
Yes,
at the same time.
yeah. They said
They were following the 1905.
so that also spelled doom, as not only Tanzania but also in many other communities. Remember, even when we had lockdown here, when we were trying to open economy, I mean face by face, there were people who were saying no, churches should be left to be open. And for me, I was like, opening a church and a bar, there's a problem.
And if you remember, there was also a common joke that we normally get fake from China. We normally get counterfeit from China. So there was even that joke that China gave us fake COVID. The COVID that was rotating in the US, in Brazil and everywhere was not the COVID that we had in Uganda.
In fact, until last week, the people were saying, until last 2 weeks, people were saying, but I think the one of India is also different. So those theories have done much in terms, even the light group have also been victims of that. So for me, I think it's also now good to sit down and listen to what advice we're getting from the health workers, because it's going to be very crucial in managing this situation.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you gentlemen because I've heard your voices and your opinions on COVID-19. It's a problem that we'll acknowledge. It's a problem that we all know is actually here with us. And I am very thankful to God that we're speaking the same language in as far as COVID-19 is concerned. The consensus that we have and the unison that we have actually in fighting this thing, if we all did the right things, then I think we'll be there. Now, away from COVID-19, let's get to the Pan-African Friday, and we'll specifically talk about silencing the guns, which is the African Union theme, rolling and going. General, I want to start with you. There is a man called Paul Kuria, wrote a book, Wars, Guns and Votes, a book that I know that you have read. And in that book, he talks about a gun movement, he talks about gun trade, he talks about quite a number of things. And his thinking as a researcher and also a journalist is one of the problems that the continent is facing is it is riddled with civil wars and wars. And these are things that are stopping or failing our prosperity, progress, and then maybe posterity even. We talk about silencing the guns, General. We have seen problems on the continent. Just a few days ago, the leader of the Boko Haram was shot. We saw recently what happened in Chad when they lost their president, Idris Deby. We see what is actually happening in Malawi currently. When you go to places like Libya, when you come to our neighbors here in Sudan, Khartoum, in Mali. Not Mali, in Mali, yes, I beg your pardon, thank you, General. In Mali, the issues happening, we talk about that, and we are seeking to answer a question. What is the role of the armies in silencing the guns on the continent? That's where we are today. Welcome.
Thank you, and listeners, away from the other global threat, which of course has fertile ground in an Africa where there are several distortions. Now, I listening to your introduction, I take it also as part of what we need to sort out, because Africa, true, is still in crisis. it has problems. But these problems are like when you fall sick. There is the real disease and the symptoms. And for Africa's situation, I think what ought to be appreciated is that there is need to define the fundamental
General Siko,
problem.
hold that there. My producer has given me this picture. I want you to speak to it because I can see it is only you actually in the picture. Make it smaller for us to see all the faces on there. We want to see all the faces because that is the journey of General Siko.
He is giving the CV, but I think that's not the most important thing.
We need to credit
Okay,
the
person talking to you has a CV.
Yes.
And has been around for a while, but really not.
Which is the least rank there that you had? A lieutenant or?
This side, we had just come from the bush.
You had just come from the bush.
And
okay.
I know the author.
You know.
So let's not be diverted because I am not a fan of
Thank you, producer.
But he needs.
Seen your story.
He wanted to.
Yes.
He thought you hadn't given a CV, so he brought it in a dramatic way.
Thank you very much.
So I am from that CV. I belong to the school of thought who believe that we need to develop a consensus on what really is afflicting Africa, because listening to that young author you've quoted, that's part actually of our problem, because when you are suffering from a disease and the disease is misdefined, it even complicates the situation more. But we are lucky, as Uganda, we have a leadership that has reasonably invested in trying to really tackle this African crisis, what has afflicted Africa. Our president, I think now, is an embodiment of authors who should be celebrated. We shouldn't be looking in so many places as far as Africa is concerned. And within the context of African Union, I remember at Nairobi, one of the Nairobi meetings, when our president addressed an assembly of African leaders who have come up with this theme, silencing the guns, he tried to draw them to what should be understood to be the African crisis. Because these guns are just a symptom of the bigger, the fundamental problem. And really, for starters, the problem of Africa is that we lagged behind, and we've stayed in that position of lagging behind for a long time. We at one time we were moving, we stagnated, and other people went ahead of us, surpassed us. And we've stayed for a long time. And these people who have surpassed us come back to, they are saying, oh, what's wrong with these characters? And they define you, that you are this, you are that. But the real problem is, what happened? Why did we lag behind? And we've stayed lagging behind for a long time. And this underdevelopment, which is technically defined so, then gets its characteristics that bring out crises that then culminate in violence, in conflicts, which the AU has clearly defined as a main obstacle towards realizing Vision 2063, because the African Union, or the
Africa Vision,
the Africa Vision is by 2063 should be a one Africa,
2013, yes.
and so on. But it can't be realized if Africa remains in this state where there is turmoil everywhere. But this turmoil is just symptomatic.
Okay.
So we need really to agree what ought to be done. And our president, the commander-in-chief, has really helped us. First of all, in crystallizing the bottlenecks. We got independence, because that should have been a breakthrough. What happened after independence? What should we have been aiming at. One, we would have said our independence never again should be disturbed.
Okay.
Two, we must grow the democracy which has been introduced by independence. Three, tackle the prosperity question. Our people must come out of misery. And four, strategic security, because that's where the guns,
That's where
the guns issue comes in.
Silencing the guns issue.
You can't silence the guns when you don't have a basis of strategically stopping the threats. And the biggest strategic threat is that we are divided. We are in fragments. So he proposes that we ought to have strategic security as a goal, all Africans. And he has tried to mobilize his peers around this. And when he was at Kororo recently, I think he again, really it was a milestone forum for AU. Then lastly, our heritage and culture. These 5 goals, for them to be realized, you need then to address some of the obstacles which we faced at independence.
Okay.
The issue of mindset. This question of misdefinition is a characteristic of ideological disorientation. When he told the African leaders that our obstacle number 1 is ideological confusion, and even when you look in the documents of AU, actually you see that confusion. And somewhere they are acknowledging that the misconception is an obstacle to their goal of silencing the guns. The Francophones are talking this, the former Portuguese colonies are talking another. You imagine recently I heard that Maputo is asking Lisbon to come and solve their problems.
Exactly.
So this is really, the president doesn't need to have an example better than that of ideological confusion. Then the weak state, he tells them, you can never silence guns when you have an viable government. Imagine a situation where a general is firing, is quarreling with a corporal in an office, and that's a government. I don't need to go into diplomatic mishaps. So unviable states. Then the third one are issues of underdevelopment in various areas of agriculture, of infrastructure. So Africa, if you look at the 10 bottlenecks of Africa, then you put them alongside the goals which we should have focused on at independence, then you can start discussing this question of silencing the guns within a proper context. So you need to excuse me, I didn't agree with your quotation. I wish you had quoted the president. We would have had a better, of course some would not want to hear it.
Yes.
They are entitled to their opinion. But really, if we are to treat Africa, we need to do it in a surgical way, like trained doctors, like people who are scientific. But if we keep gambling about Africa's issues, we shall remain in circles.
Ndugu Mtuta, will come to you, and I think Fandasim will also address on the same issue. Yesterday we read the budget, and I tried following both budgets, at least in the region, because the ESC treaty actually talks about the East African countries reading the budget simultaneously or at the same time. It happens, it's a tradition of the 3 founding partner states. I was following the budget in Nairobi, and they put 170 billion US dollars into, billions into their money, which translates into about 5.5 trillion Uganda shillings. When you look at Uganda's security and governance budget here, which is about 6 trillion, and many people talk about it and say, okay, we are not in times of war. Why would you put all that money into security? Let's relate that to silencing the guns, because as a country, yes, we can see how much money we pumped into security and governance. What we did in Uganda is actually almost what Kenya did the other side and elsewhere. How does that help us in solving the problem of silencing the guns, having heard from General Masiko and the synopsis that is given to us?
But of course, like he's been saying, most of the people, when we look at these budgets, we are only looking at what we know. But issues of security of any state is more complex than we can understand. There is both the what people think, they will see vehicles, they will see guns, and know that now Uganda has this type of gun, has this type of aircraft. But there's a lot in terms of software, in terms of ideology has talked about. That also needs to be looked at. So, and we have countries in this continent, when you look at their budget, for example, when you look at the first big armies of Africa, including Egypt, Algeria, Nigeria,
Morocco and others,
and South Africa. I mean, you cannot imagine how much they are spending on their budgets. But and then we can talk of how much we are spending when we don't know how much we are saving by doing that, by spending that much. But like the president has been saying, and he has also echoed it, having a weak state is as dangerous as anything, because other than security, there is also a lot that happens within the establishment of a state. So I think Africa needs to wake up when it comes to issues of security, issues of safety of its people. Last time the president was talking about how he felt let down during the Libyan crisis. Yeah. But that also talks of volumes. Can we have a standby force in this continent that can help to solve our problems? We're now talking about Mali. Can Africa intervene in Mali than waiting for someone from outside this continent? Can Africa intervene in Libya so that we have the peace in that continent? When you look at the issues of Mali now, you are looking at issues of Niger, issues of Nigeria, issues of around that basin. Can Africa do something? Now, we can't do that if we are powerless. We don't have the capacity to do so. France is now helping in Chad to bring sanity and peace in the country. We are looking, and you know, it is historical, like he put it. When you look at the founding fathers in this continent, you talk about Patrice Lumumba, talk about Kwame Nkrumah. The problem they had was the security problem.
Ahmed Ben Bella and all the others.
Exactly, because we cannot hold our affairs, we cannot take charge of our affairs. The foreigners will come and dictate and to push throughout our leaders, and then they take charge in trying to help. We have had institutions. We are talking about African Union having the disorientation, even in the activities, ideological disorientation. What about the UN itself? Because part of the problems that we have been having as Africa is the intervention of UN. To the extent that you wonder whether we're being helped or we are expecting the problem when these forces come to help us. We have seen this happen all over these countries whenever these interventions have been done. So as Africa, we need to have a stronger state. Africa needs to have its own army that will address its issues, because our interests are not the same with the rest of the world. So we need to look at what is good for us and how can we protect and promote that is good for the African people.
Ndugu, as coming to that same one, looking at the budgets that you read, how much money we put in into security, and let's translate that into the African Union agenda of silencing the guns on the continent. Just like General Masiko here detailed, in 2013 when they launched the 2063 vision of the Africa that we want to see. Now, one of the things to actually achieve that and see that by 2063, we want to see a calm Africa, we want to see an Africa that solves the strategic bottlenecks, as the General has talked about them here, and see a progressive continent which is not riddled with guns, wars, and civil unrests. Karibu.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to add on what General said. The bottlenecks, emiziziko, and he talked about weak state, the weak armies, ideological disorientation. When you look at Uganda, you refer back to these books of Fukuyama, The End of History.
Fukuyama.
In the 8 from 1962 up to now, those who were not using these budgets to safeguard the country, how did we? Because now the tradition is that at least from 1960s, you have been having change of governments, and that has been, of course, attributed to the army, of course, the weak state. But now, if you go back to people like Nkrumah, Africa must unite. They were also talking about these issues. You can't have economic development, of course, if you have not stabilized other areas. When you go to Europe, I told you last time that European Union was not created to supply Holy Communion. It was only because they had threats. Wars were everywhere. When you look at United States, even uniting those states, it was not easy. So Africa, like he said, you need to sit down and create that consensus. The 2063 vision of Africa, you cannot say you are going to develop when UN, even the UN they are talking about, we are not there. They, you know, they have permanent members.
The Africa we want.
Those people who have veto powers. You look at Congo here, which is the neighbor, and you look at the resources. And I think these budgets you see, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, the issue of security is paramount. You go to our towns here, from Karere here, people who are selling tomatoes, you can't find soldiers standing there or what? Or policemen. But you go to the banks. What does that mean? That means that security of what you have, because you see, Africans cannot just say ninaduka ya milioni chinana and the Holy Spirit will guard it. No, Africa is like that bank. Every resource now is where? In Africa. So the hyenas must be rotating around the what? The resources. And that's what people openly should tell the Africans. And when you see people talking about civil society, NGOs, that is another way of giving the issues proper. But for us, we are on those resources. Of course, in most African countries, I told you the other day, dying of poverty, hunger, diseases, live around this pandemic. But when we are really on those resources, now if we, those miziziko, if we sort out them, then we would utilize the resources we have, the prosperity which General has talked about, and then reduce. But so far now, everybody, they have been threatening actually this country that they are not going to give you donation. They cannot. This one I can tell you, of course, they cannot, because if you look at again another book of Professor Moyo, The Dead Aid, they cannot stop giving you aid, because it is through the aid that they can aid something. You get me? Otherwise, if they don't give you aid, still World Bank and IMF were created to do
They have
what?
that obligation.
They have that obligation.
The international
They will give you the money. None of us here can go to the bank and say, I am a good Christian, you give me what? Money. Even I got saved yesterday. No, they will not give you. They will say, where is the Korato? Who can recommend you? Are you a Ugandan? So all those issues come in. So if we had silenced the gun, like other countries have done, in those issues. Of course, if you read even our constitution, the directives the direct objectives on state policy, you find that issues of democracy. Now, you have seen the last elections. You, even if you were very bright like how, to become a member of parliament, to become a district chairperson, you need those resources. Now, unless we again dissect this and domesticate it to the, like my senior here, General, has been doing in universities, we need a bigger cadreship to understand these issues.
Okay.
Otherwise, you find people quarreling on small things.
Okay.
Are you getting me? A rat has knocked a cat, it becomes a debate in a trading center. Okay. The whole day, by the way. Okay. And people are hungry, they are not going to drink. And the next day, they become thieves. So, you need to make sure that these people are oriented, they know where the country is going, they know where Africa is, and they know the history also. You remember what Tom Mboya says, a nation without history
It's like a face without a nose.
is like a face without a nose.
Yes.
Otherwise, these people keep here saying, you democracy, democracy. But democracy, yes, it is there.
Okay.
But how can you democratize without having anything you put in your stomach?
So
No, lastly,
yes.
all these, yesterday when I was doing some small research, you look at what is happening in Ethiopia. They are telling you part of that country, the hunger is becoming too much. And then when people are hungry, they become what? Refugees. Are you getting me? You are exporting refugees. When you reach in other countries, of course you can create what? Conflict. You can see what is happening in Congo. But now you look at the whole of Horn of Africa.
Okay.
Resources, abundant, rain and everything. Even this pandemic, by the way, pandemic, I told you about the series. If we don't get organized so that we constrain it, then it also attracts people. Because how do they come? When they destroyed Libya, they are now funding. You get it? For them, there is a way. You create a conflict, and
Then
you
solve
are
the problem. Then you become the champions. Ndugu Akol, talk about silencing the guns.
Thank you, Ndugu Jagenda. I think silencing the guns, we need to look at the history of conflict. Because like Afande Masco put it, is that the biggest problem was ideological disorientation, but also lack of strategic focus and direction, like the president as well as put it. Because when you find that at independence, most leaders, the elite, the political class, did not actually involve the armies in running the countries. And what happened was a series of coups, because these are people who are not brought closer to understand the strategic direction the country and the continent was heading to. Because when you look at the formation of OAU, how I wish perhaps maybe for the various army commanders were involved, so that would see at least the reduction of the coups.
At that time in 1963?
Yes, in 1963, because from 1963, then actually from 1960s, because beginning with Congo, that is the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. You go to West Africa, Olympio, the likes of Dr. Nada Azikiwe in Nigeria. Yeah, so there was a number of coups, the mutinies in Tanzania and everywhere, because the leadership then inherited an army that was not theirs. It was a colonial army. And little did they know that the colonial army was paying allegiance not to them, but to the masters. And that's why most of them were actually humiliated and dislodged. Now, I just want to use a case study of President Yoweri Museveni, because every other time he has always assured people that no one can disorganize Uganda. Why? Because this is an army he has seen evolve from the start.
And organized
and organized
it. Got those who are not organized.
Yes.
So it's an organized army.
Since from the Fronasa days. You get it? So it is an army he has built. It is an army that every other time he keeps reminding on what they are calling the stability of Uganda, but also the bigger picture, the stability of the continent. That's why every other time there is a crisis on the continent, everybody is thinking about Uganda. There was somebody who was also telling us that, look at the conflict in Somalia. Kenya was actually more affected by that conflict in Somalia. So was Ethiopia. But when it came to issues of how do we stabilize Somalia,
sending troops,
they dragged their feet. But Uganda, that is not even affected, said, look here, our Pan-African calling gives us also the mandate, because when your brother is actually in danger, it is also you in danger. Look at South Sudan. Even when the role Uganda has played in stability of Sudan, but at times the Sudanese misbehave against Ugandans, and we've not seen even generals saying, why don't we do the same to Sudanese living here? Say no, because those are just ignorant brothers. We shall tolerate them until such a time when they are conscious of the bigger picture of the continent. So these are so I think in silencing the guns, one of the leaders really who's now a success story is President Yoweri Museveni, how he has done it in Karamoja, how he has defeated the insurgencies here. Those are very successful. But also how he has managed to balance local, continental, and global politics to the advantage of the common mwananchi. Is also something that we need to understand, because some leaders actually were unconscious of the global politics, that they made reckless statements that ended up really costing them their career and also the stability of their countries.
Well, thank you so much. General, I'll come back to you here, and just for you to some case studies on the continent of Africa. When they overthrew Blaise Compaoré in Botswana, of course they went into that anarchy there, and somehow they organized themselves. Macroch Kabore,
it's Burkina Faso.
It's sorry, in Burkina Faso. Yeah, in Burkina Faso. Macroch Kabore comes on. So he comes, he organizes. They just had an election sometime last year. And you notice that, yes, Roch Kabore was actually given another mandate, but he's governing a country that is split into different sections. The other opposition there, some militants here, some vigilantes here, but it's a country of its own. Now, when you come to our neighbors, just talked about Somalia. When you look at Somalia now and Kenya, the problems are the Jubaland. Trading accusations of Kenyatta's government causing instability to Farmajo, the other side, and you're looking at it now. All these are members of the UN, and I beg your pardon, of the AU. And we talk about silencing the guns, but we're trading accusations against ourselves that one government this side is saying, you are doing this to us, and you're looking at that. You just brought the example of South Sudan and us here, because these are younger brothers who do not know much of these things, and we don't come out to say we possibly helped you and did all the things. Just looking at them, General, what do you think needs to do? Because you, the armies now, when we talk about silencing the guns, we are not asking pastors to preach in churches. We're not asking just the cultural leaders to actually rally us for cultural events, for the guns to be silent. We need to see you more in this, Ndugu General.
Thank you. I want to thank Ndugu Akol. I was really beginning to enjoy his
submission.
His submission was hitting the nail on the head, and picking from the pieces you've raised. What is the issue? When we got independence, as I did say, did we define the objectives of this independence? We didn't. A few. Nkrumah had an idea. Nyerere had the time, and he's celebrated because at least for him he created a new formation. He did not inherit a colonial entity, Tanganyika. He added Zanzibar, and he's celebrated as the only leader who managed to form a united Republic of Tanzania as a demonstration where Africa should have been. And you see the results of that experimentation vis-a-vis your Congo, where our brother Lumumba did not have an opportunity. They said, oh, we cannot even live a second with this fellow. They silenced him. And when they silence a Lumumba, what follows? The Burkina Faso, little known, a young person emerges, Sankara.
Sankara.
And he he begins to be a
Rally
voice.
masses.
To be a voice. And you hear of Burkina Faso, because Upper Volta was never heard of. When he does that, they come in and silence him. So when this topic is silencing the gun, let's look at what the enemies of Africa have been doing. They've been silencing the ideas that would silence the gun.
Yes.
So the Sankara is silenced, and you bring in puppets, this Blaise Compaoré, and now what they really want has unfolded. This is the reason they celebrated Idi Amin here. Idi Amin takes over. The first country to celebrate his ascendancy was Britain. Britain said, this is the best thing that has happened to Uganda. And they invited him. His first journey outside Uganda was to dine with the Queen.
Him.
He dines with the Queen. What followed? Uganda, you see people who you think have medicine for us. And recently they've been trying to give you another one. But the issue is that the medicine is really not rocket science. Our president has this, once we wake up, then the first thing to be done first is coming together. Once we come together, you wouldn't have the confusion in East Africa. We have a framework already. 6 countries are in East Africa. But you see how they are beginning to make us. But at least for us, the framework is there. And the way to silence guns in East Africa is consolidating East Africanness. If we have a Federal Republic of East Africa, I am telling you, sure, like the sun sets from east to west, it will be, the guns will, because we are one government here. When there is trouble in Karamoja, we go there. So if you have a Federal Republic of East Africa, there will be trouble in Burundi, you are there. There will be trouble in some place, you are there. And you are hearing yesterday, the president assured us, even the attempt to destabilize Karamoja, using the East African framework, he promises that he's going to talk to his counterpart. And there is already also an East African framework on defense and security, which is going to enable that escalation to be brought down. So the formula for Africa's answers: 1, to wake up. To wake up and know that we need to preserve independence. How can France be the solution to Mali?
Or Chad? France
be a solution to what? It's because people are asleep. These people, the vision, the mission of France in Africa is no.
And general.
So you cannot expect that France is going to be the panacea for the Francophone zone. It won't. But because Africans are asleep, and that's what the president talked about on his inauguration. He really, I celebrate that day because that was the best summit in my lifetime. And if our brothers went and digested the presentation that day, that's the way to go. That's how we shall silence the guns.
And AU was ably represented. They were all here.
Ndugasime wanted to.
No, I wanted to say, how can France be a solution where a president is slapped during the day?
That's the right joke. You know, you remember when the Portuguese were terrorizing the Mozambicans and the Angolans? The Portuguese themselves were under problems.
Yes.
And actually, the Angolans and Mozambicans are the ones who liberated Portugal.
Yes.
Because you remember the struggles of Africa led to the collapse of a fascist regime in Lisbon. And the Portuguese also got liberated. The oppressors were liberated by the oppressed.
By the oppressed. Anyway, well, it's 10 o'clock. We'll just take a break. But when we return, we'll still continue with the conversation of silencing the guns as the African Union agenda. And of course, that is what we're discussing today on our Pan-African Friday. And in studios is General, Major General Henry Masiko. He is the National Political Commissar and also Political Commissar, Chief Political Commissar, CPC. He is the Chief CPC of the Army and also Member of Parliament representing the UPDF in the 11th Parliament. Ndugu Mtuta will return, and when we come back, we want to still look at the role, for example, of the ECOWAS. When you look at the region and in what is actually happening in West Africa, for example, where is ECOWAS if France comes on to be the panacea, like the General here said? And that's what we need to look into, to actually see whether we are on the right trajectory in as far as silencing the guns is concerned. We'll take a break and return thereafter.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
Therefore, understanding this model. Hey, excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Welcome to Coffee Production Tips, brought to you by Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Uganda Coffee Development Authority is the government agency mandated to promote and oversee the coffee industry as a whole by developing research, facilitating coffee production and productivity, by training farmers on good agricultural practices, controlling the quality and improving the marketing of coffee for the benefit of stakeholders. In this series, a trained farmer, Mr. Wally Christopher, gives tips and demonstrates digging the hole, planting coffee seedlings, mulching, training coffee seedlings, and stamping coffee.
After some time, we are in a garden which has stayed for over 30 years, 30 to 40 years, and the necessary management practice is stamping. When you see the productivity of an area has gone down, we call it law of diminishing returns. You add everything, fertilizer, what you do the weeding, you mulch, but the yield is not increasing. It is just decreasing. You have to stamp. And this is a practice which has been done maybe 10 to 15%. 10 to 20%. Most of the farmers don't stamp their coffee. They fear, they have that fear. What shall I eat after stamping? But this is the practice where they cut off all the old plants. You can see the stem, they cut. This is this, they have cut all the branches. You can see this is 1, 2, 3. They have cut everything here. And then the plant, you leave a breather, this one for survival, because it has to make food. And also you have to eat something. So this breather is the one which makes food for the plant to come back, rejuvenation. So this was stamped some time ago, and now it has brought numerous branches. So these numerous branches you have to cut, Jango Sale. You cut off the rest. You cut off the so these numerous branches, you leave the best one. You cut off the bad ones first until you come to the best ones. Use a secateur, so the work has to use a very sharp tool. So you can leave 1, 2, these are 2, 3, 4 branches. This will come up per stamp, and then you weed as they have weeded. You deep weed. You can see they have deep weeded. It's not harrowing, it is deep, so that they change the soil. The top one goes down. This is how they do it. And when you have some manure, like it is going to rain, it's going to apply per what? Per stake, per stool. Yeah, when you don't have a lot, you apply manure per stool. Then the plant will come back. Then you will get more money. But here, many people don't stamp, because when you don't stamp, you will get very small beans. And when you have some manure, like it is going to rain, it's going to apply per stool.
Farmers are encouraged to adopt good agricultural practices to get high yields, good prices, and better income from coffee. These tips are brought to you by Uganda Coffee Development Authority.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from the break, and thank you so much for joining and keeping it with us here on the Pan-African Friday. My name is Jagan Asama Classic Soccer in studios this morning with Major General Henry Masiko, Ndugu James Mututa, RDC Asimwe Stephen from Gomba, and Cole Mande Amazima. Mututa, we just left it there, and questioning, of course, ECOWAS, their presence in issues that are actually happening now in that part of Africa.
Of course, the other biggest problem that Africa has been experiencing is the indifference with which we handle issues. Again, sorry, I'll refer back to the president's frustration during the Libyan crisis. He's talking to South Africa about a way, could there be a way that they could intervene in this crisis? But you also remember that South Africa already was among the first African countries that endorsed the resolution of intervention at the UN in Libya, authorizing the America and France to intervene. So, like I said, I was wondering if the president was talking to the right person by that time. Now, that's the problem of Africa, that sometimes because of the small kingdoms that we occupy, we tend to look at conflicting and saying that maybe if the other person is now taken out, I'll be able to be the next, the bigger bull in the crowd, that small crowd. But I don't know why we are not learning this, because this has been the same problem we have had from day one of our existence. That someone will come and say, look, now that is your brother is a problem. If you get rid of him, your problem will be solved. But tomorrow then you also become a problem to someone, and then they'll get rid of you. So we have a number of agencies in Africa at the blocks. But until recently, you remember, and again we had here discussing that African Union was edged out when it came to how to resolve issues of Libya. There were hearing conferences going on in other capitals, but African Union was not even involved. So the decisions of Africa are being taken by outside Africa to come and help Africa, and it will never happen, because once we are not part of the solution to our problems, then those solutions are not going to be for the best interest of Africa. So we have ECOWAS, we have the other one, but you realize that because of that small rivalry within these blocks, even the intervention also becomes a problem. And again, we discussed here last time, we're saying, because of that minuteness, you are now having President Tshisekedi as the chairman
of the AU,
of the African Union, to handle the issues of Libya, to handle issues of Mali, to handle issues of Chad, to handle, these are big issues.
And the DRC itself.
But he has a problem back at home.
In the DRC.
Yes. So how does he handle other people's problems when he's also having similar problems back at home? Then what can Africa do? What Africa now needs to do is to consolidate. We can, for now, because how does now a country like Chad, for example, you want to sit on the same table with America as countries, and now you are discussing your issues. How? Well, one state in the US is bigger than a country, and you have this small king from that small state who is now sitting at the table of men. I was one time at the UN, and the good thing with Uganda is that our embassy is just opposite the UN. So when you are moving from our embassy going to the UN, you don't need a vehicle. And of course, when these people go for these UN conferences, they are not using vehicles. All the heads of state are put in a UN village. So you just walk across. Now, one thing struck me. By then, it was President Obama who was the president. And you could look at the president of Israel. I remember looking at the president of Libya was not there, but most of these African presidents, as they walk to go to the opening of the UN, then President Obama comes in a motorcade. And then they use the word freeze. Everyone freezes. And then they are pushing these guys. The presidents now. So give way for the president who is coming.
But these are also presidents.
These are also presidents.
They've come for the same presidential meeting.
And I'm looking at myself. I'm like, who are these people and who is this person? So you are literally pushing the heads of state to give way for the president. I think that to me, that's such a humiliation as Africa. We shouldn't be taking it lightly.
Okay.
So we need to have, and of course, like I said, we are not also making use, we are not being informed by our history, how we could have missed a lot of chances that could even have altered the political establishments even outside of Africa, if Africans were united, for the few moments that Africa has had to work together, a lot of successes have been achieved.
Okay.
But because of now this coming back, small groups like the president has been alluding to, will still continue killing us until such a time that we need to say, let's forget all about our own benefits as individuals. Look at a bigger picture of Africa, that we shall be able to merge to the rest of the world and stand to their face and claim for what is rightly to us.
Okay.
For now, it becomes a problem.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ndugu Mtuta. Ndugu Asimwe, RDC, I'll bring you particular on this one. You'll also notice that we talk about silencing the guns. When you go to the Horn of Africa, you will see that Ethiopia, first of all, you talked about it. You talked about that. There is Ethiopia here. They have a problem with the Eritrea. You can see what is actually happening there. But also, there is this other program now that Ethiopia is building what they call the GAD, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a very big project, and it's causing a lot of pressure to Egypt the other side. And now President Fattah al-Sisi over Egypt is seeing lots of things that could happen out of that. But we talk about silencing the guns on the continent. We talk about all these things. You come next that you find there is possibly a big project in Uganda that is supposed to happen, and it may not augur well with maybe another neighbor. You go to another place and find that, yes, we as a country are actually saying we need to do this for our people, but you notice that that very good program that is happening in that particular country is also again not auguring very well to the neighbor somewhere else. And these are all issues or grounds to escalate conflict and to not silence the guns, but to actually just make the guns sound more and more. What do you think needs to be done at that level for us to be able to silence the guns, like we're discussing?
Yeah, even before you go to Egypt, and because that is what they are doing, they are referring to agreements that were made before.
Anyone was
and which they had nothing to do with
us. Actually, even before those countries, of course, Ethiopia was not colonized, but when you look at the agreements were made pre-independence. Now, when you come to Uganda, even you know the projects here. When the president said we are now going to construct roads, you know. People are saying now roads for what? Then others were arguing, you are going to talk about Simba Dam and what. So they were not looking at that bigger picture.
Yeah.
That if you are talking about growth and development, there are things you must do first. No country in Europe, some of you have traveled like him and General, that you cannot see infrastructure and other things that are growing. Because what are the catalysts? If you have no roads, if you have no issues of electricity, if you have no running water, so how are you going to transform
and just let me chip in for you to continue. When there was an attempt on General Katumba Mala's life, I read a very prominent tweet from a very prominent Ugandan to actually say, killing Katumba Mala will not stop this project to happen. And you look at all the things. Somebody tweeted to say, killing General Katumba Mala will not stop this project. Now it gets you thinking. Is Katumba Mala being threatened because of a particular project? Shouldn't we have the project?
Even in 1970s, there was a man called Okero. When they were going to hang him, he said, you kill me, but you not kill the spirit of Ugandans. And the spirit continued anyway. The generals went to the bush and we are here. So what you are talking about Ethiopia, the challenge is because of this neo-colonialism, you must make sure that Egypt and Ethiopia must have a conflict. It is a trick, because if that dam is finished, it will supply electricity the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. And that means you become independent. You are not going to beg. You as now, the target is that you must beg. In fact, you remember when the generals were in Guru. Guru had more than 1,000 NGOs. And if you had only 800 houses, so that means each house had an
NGO to look after it.
So what do they want? They want to keep you in this spirit of civil society, NGO. Are you getting me? Because they will have to create a conflict, then you have an NGO on peace and conflict, you have an NGO on reconstruction, you have an NGO on psychology, you have an NGO on wash and what, capacity building. So that's the target. But if those countries, for example, If you look at the leadership in Ethiopia, that's where the African Union is, first of all. This is the country, of course, you get also to Eritrea, and then Egypt. But if there was orientation, which the general talked about, to know what is the enemy around us, are we conflicting on the electricity, or there is somebody trying to divide us? Because the Egyptian not you see, at least Egypt is one of those developed countries on the continent, and you know why. When you go to Egypt, you really find that many things have moved than some of these other countries in sub-Saharan. So the conflict there is historical, and is to make sure that we don't manage the resources properly, because the dam is on this continent.
Maybe some little information before you leave that point. Recently, I was privy to a discussion where President Museveni was telling Africans about that artificial conflict in Ethiopia, Egypt, and he said, if Africans were to be sober and come together, we have this Congo River has more water than the whole of Africa requires. And here, actually, on the border between Congo, some corner between Congo and Uganda, there is a conjunction where you can easily have water come from the Congo, join the Nile, and you have all the water you need. This information is there, but Africans, as he's saying, don't have this big picture. They are squabbling, but the solutions are here if Africans could work together.
But
sorry for interrupting.
No problem.
It's good information, General.
The source of the Nairobi, you remember when we wanted to put that? Some people had started making some more arguments which are not really moving. Now is the bridge there? Are the people not moving? So the issue is, how do we utilize these resources to help the population, the barraging population, and most especially the youth? So, and you know, as I told you the other day, the old saying that when the elders are fighting, when the elders are quarreling, it is the youth to do what? To fight. And the whole continent, we cannot keep in these things. You know what Nkrumah used to say? Backward, never forward, ever. We must look forward and see what can help this continent. Otherwise, you come to our country here, you set up a cabinet, you do the district leaders, you see the MPs. Instead of looking at the bigger picture, we are looking at what we are going to share in the meantime. You get me? So, unless, and the general knows, any country that has constructed a paradigm shift must have enough cadres to understand this. Is there any village where you can't find a church?
In this country?
In this country. And the church must be on a hill.
What does that mean?
I will tell you the details after here. Tell me, when the missionaries came, how many were they?
They planted churches everywhere and in very strategic places. I'll come in here on that same issue, and of course, picking from the guidance of the general here, where we have even artificial problems that we're grappling with as a continent.
Well, I think the conflict and the problems we have in Africa, we can look at the intrastate and interstate. And that can actually be solved if we raise our consciousness. Now, let's look at the issue of the dam in Ethiopia and the matters of the Nile. You know, the matters of the Nile are so intricate that in the 60s, actually, they came up with a project called the Hydromet project that was hosted in Entebbe to gather research on how the countries in the Nile Basin can actually live together. So that organization mutated into what we call the NBI, Nile Basin Initiative, which is also still hosted in Entebbe. Also to come up with a framework, how do these countries in the Nile Basin harmoniously live together, use the resources, use the River Nile resources without any conflict. However, midway, of course, they came up with the Nile Basin cooperative framework, a framework that is supposed actually to help these countries equitably use the Nile water, and also perhaps use the resources on the Nile in recognition on other states' needs in as far as the use of the water is concerned. But unfortunately, out of it's only 6 countries that have signed that document, and only 4 have ratified it. And I think they need a minimum of 6 countries to have ratified, not signed, so that it can be applied. Why Egypt has constant, actually Egypt is among the countries that have not signed and have not ratified. That is actually Egypt and Sudan. Now, Egypt every other time refers to the 1929 agreement, which that gives them an exclusive right over the Nile. And also, what is very interesting, because I've been interacting with Patrick Osbert Kanjiri, who is actually presidential advisor on matters of the Nile. He's Uganda's pioneer hydrologist, and the issues. What is so interesting that in Egypt, everybody, right from primary, they know about the Nile, and they know what is Egypt's position in as far as the Nile is concerned.
They actually say Egypt is the Nile,
and that is now the consciousness people need to develop. That here in Uganda, even people at university may not know exactly the significance of River Nile, and perhaps these other waters. How do we come together in ensuring that we use them properly? So I think the best approach in silencing the guns, one, especially when it comes to the intra-state conflicts, is how the national cake is shared. Yesterday, when the president was actually addressing members of parliament, and he gave his reasons why. After the budget, yes, because he gave his reasons why he has a large cabinet, because the constitution mandates 21. And then 21 state ministers, and then the territorial cabinets, about 42. But Uganda has over 56 tribes. And we are in the politics of my person being there. So whether now people in Uganda
talked about somebody from Kasese.
Yes,
he said somebody from Kasese.
Yes, he talked about somebody Kabyanga from Kasese.
Exactly.
Yes. So people will look at the cabinet, say who is our own here. It is not. They are not looking at who is going to deliver. It is about who. And this takes us to Kenya. When Kenya, they came up after the Grand Coalition government, they come up with a constitution. No, we need to reduce on public spending. They came up with only 18 cabinet positions. And they only have the president and the vice president. The deputy president. But now they want to change the constitution. They want to create the prime minister, because they have realized that a country of 44 tribes, you cannot have 18 ministers. Because in Africa, we are still fixated with this issue of, do I have my person there? Okay. And not until that is really addressed. Because ideally, when you look at the formation of cabinets and governments in Africa, when you ignore that, then you lose the point. Okay. But as long as people get some kind of satisfaction that we have our own there, that can a little bit reduce on the conflict. Now, when it comes to the interstates, of course, the interstates conflict, this is where we need a stronger African Union. This is where we need stronger regional blocks. Now, like we have the East African Community, it's now at least a stronger bloc, and maybe the ECOWAS. Okay. Now, when you go to the ECOWAS, let's look at the conflict, the Gambian issue, where Jammeh actually had refused to hand over. It was easier for ECOWAS to come in and actually force him out. But we don't know why actually they are failing in Mali. Is it because Gambia was a small country and now Mali is a big country? Yes. So that's why we are getting now the other issue. Then also, lastly, still on the issue of the interstate conflicts, is having a leadership at a national level that is conscious, that is very, very aware of the African agenda.
Hold it there,
Yes.
and because that was my next issue here to General Masiko. When the president spoke to us on his inauguration on the 12th of May, he was too astute on Africa, the United Africa, the Africa that we all want to see. And then he said, yes, if we came together as Africa, then everybody would actually know and see our strength. But I want to bring it back to you, General, that to many of us who have the Pan-African spirit, we think that was the highlight of the day when the president was speaking, the way he spoke. First and foremost, there was this opportunity that we had the African Union here, we had presidents represented. We had actually 32 countries that were represented on that day here. But before we even push it far away, we want to bring it here. He's our president. He was speaking to us even when he was addressing the world. To domesticate it, do we first of all understand that? And if we do, General Masiko, if we as Ugandans pick that spirit, think like the head of state thinks, and we run with his vision, if we do, what about the others? Because when you look at the continent, there is also a tendency of those, he called them hyenas, I think. Hyenas have a tendency of planting puppets on the continent. And we've seen these coming up, growing on the continent in different countries where you have people who do not have the African agenda, people who do not have the national agenda, people who do not think Africa, people who think it should be. And they've always contested this, saying, when we go in an election, for example, and I will tell you that AU has sent a delegation that is coming with very eminent and nationalist, Pan-Africanist, very prominent people. The ESC has sent observers to come in. Nobody wants to recognize them until they hear that the EU has actually come. And before EU comes, they don't think there will be an election because EU has not come and maybe some other person somewhere. But the moment they hear EU observers have come, then they are sure that yes, now there's going to be an election. But remember, there's AU, there's all these others coming on. General, let me understand it from you. If first and foremost, do we here understand that? And how do we sell it to the world? How about the world elsewhere? If you have a champion like Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who thinks African, who thinks Africa, who thinks unity in that regard, and you have countries elsewhere that do not see this and they're looking at these small enclaves and their own cocoons there, will we be able to achieve the Agenda 2063 and specifically silencing the guns as we talk about it?
Well, the first thing I can say, it's good that on the African scene, a voice is prominent in defining what is afflicting Africa and taking practical steps to implement. This is a good leap forward, because if you get to the ideas before independence and after, immediately after independence in the 60s, there were voices who were seeing the problem, because like Nkrumah said, this is not independence if we don't have the United States of Africa. That was an idea. And others. But right now we have both a political thinker, a philosopher, but who is also a practitioner. I think for Africa this is a matter to celebrate. And we don't need to really be shy about what we have. For us in the army now, we are cherishing this message, and we are trying to understand it and popularize it, and this is what is required generally, because the real thing is that our message has delivered solutions from the 10-point program and others. So what comforts me is that now that this prominent voice that has philosophically analyzed and is offering some prescriptions is is having center stage, it will grow. When Jesus' message started, it was a minority philosophy, and those who were attempting to propagate it suffered. But 2,000 years down the road, it's a prominent philosophy. So we shouldn't lose hope. For us, for example, we've documented our doctrine. Armies have fighting doctrines. So if you study the doctrine of UPDF, it's not talking about, you know, fighting these small trivial things. It's showing what type of wars we have. The war of transforming Africa. Once people are prosperous, what Akol was talking about, even the internal contradictions which bring problems would be sorted out. All those things are just symptoms of people who are not yet transformed, who are not prosperous. Once people are prosperous, they will not mind who is in the bureaucracy. The issue, they are all eyeing the bureaucracy because there is this mentality of being given, the beggar mentality. But once people are satisfied, they are creating their own wealth, they will not mind who is where. So we need to digest the president's philosophy, the ideology of this struggle, of the national resistance movement struggle, of patriotism, and what is this inside this patriotism, which builds in Pan-Africanism, which is emphasizing modernization, and therefore enjoying our liberty. Because democracy is about people who are empowered, and they must be empowered in content, not just these honorables you hear in the villages. So, me, I am very optimistic. In Nairobi, I don't remember which, I think 2015, when presidents, the AU adopted the president's proposal on the bottlenecks as a working document for Africa.
Yes.
That's a hope. Of course, the enemy is also projecting, they are also working, bringing their own confusion. But on the table, at least, the right medicine is there. And believe you me, in a short time, people will know which is the right medicine. So I have no doubt in my mind that Africa has a future. Africa has a future because we've got a messenger who is more practical, because some messengers have lived for a short time, but we are lucky ours has been preserved, has had time to articulate,
internalize, and
disseminate, and practice. And the results which are here, other people have eyes. In the Bible, they say you can never cover light. Whether you bring what light with
you can't light you can't have light and put it under the basket.
A bushel or basket.
Then put it under the basket.
It will stick out. Africans, even these who are trying to be obstacles. Our doctrine, for example, on silencing guns. You know the provocations we always go through. You were here telling us how our younger brothers in South Sudan provoke, but you know it's part of our ideology, because we know that there are wars to fight.
You don't just respond to every provocation that comes on.
And we believe that ultimately the people of Africa are the solution. They are the ones with the answer. They are the ones who are going to create wealth. They are the ones who will want to trade. And all this is going to be part of the solution of Africa.
On the doctrine general, still with you, we've had the people castigate saying, why do you now bring the armies from the barracks into the civil service, into the public service? into you know, governance and many of the things. Picking it from where I said, but I want you to respond to that. That people now feel it's different. That the armies are supposed to be in the barracks, wait for trouble, wait for war, and all the things. But seeing you, of course, we've seen this.
Of course, that's ignorance. If you see all the transformed societies,
yes,
armies have opportunities to do more because they are disciplined, and they really invest in training and information.
In human resource.
So, all these transformed societies, be it in the West, be it in Asia, the armies are in the lead. So it's Africa where they are always being confused,
bogged down,
where they are just parroting falsehoods. In America, all these things we are using, this phone started as a military gadget.
Yes.
Everything that leads in transformation of society is always militarily led. Defense economy is always in the lead of a national economies in many places. But that's a different subject. But Africans need to know that even in the traditional society, there was no segmentation. The society was always organized in such a way that the producers had a way of working with those who defend the wealth, and so on, that you have people just sitting there, that their work is to use the sword. They would use both the sword and the plow. And it's a big debate. There are some people who think, I was recently making a presentation, that swords must be made into plows, and therefore you have a world where there is no gun, our topic. That world is really idealistic.
It's utopia.
It's utopia from the beginning, when the world got divided and something called state emerged, or government. The issue of the sword has to be there. But the difference becomes, how do you use the sword vis-a-vis securing society entirely? Because security means remove threats. There are some threats which you remove with deterrence, like God put that rotating sword in the garden. But the other deterrents are removing the obstacles, people having enough food, having good health, having houses. Then the sword or the gun will be less useful at that time. So we need to understand these things fundamentally. And you know, it saddens at times when you see a disease being misdefined and mismanaged, therefore. And this is the whole crisis of Africa.
Okay. Yes.
No, I just wanted to supplement to General that another challenge we have, General, is reading also. And it has not come to the public like those people who live in a district or sub-counties. But even among the elites, you find somebody asking you, why do you bring soldiers into wealth creation? But Article 208 and 209 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda says UPDF shall engage in productive activities for the development of Uganda. It is the 209D.
No, the public knows. The public knows Article 1 and 102B.
When you even go to E, you are talking about fostering harmony between the military and the civilians. They are written. But as you know, I normally tell you the understanding
is not compulsory.
Yes. So these are things you need to read. Just simple things. So we had a lot of engagement with the politicians, telling them, yes, if like the general has said, soldiers, yes, cannot be there with AK-47 every day, but there are soldiers who have really knowledge about this thing. And UPDF, by the way, when I was checking, and when I last wrote the article about UPDF as an emerging force not only on the continent but in the globe, you find that you can't keep them there. And now even the UPDF has intellectuals. You know, they used to think armies are not what? Educated. They have engineers, they have engineering brigade, they have been constructing many roads and other things. So I think, and then another thing you should also know. Why?
They actually now have a 3-year cadet course in their military school. 3-year
so when you
cadet
go to these districts of Nakasongola and what, you can see. And of course, as he said, consciousness. You can't do these things when you are not disciplined. Some of our people, why things are not moving in these districts, is because there is a group they call, is it civil servants or evil servants? I don't know. I have not yet defined them properly.
Civil servants.
But they are garracks. You find every them they are sleeping. Now then that we have now a pandemic, nobody will see. So you need that team, that cadreship that can transform. Otherwise you will remain meandering on small things. Can you imagine in 21st century you have some villages that are ravaged by jiggers? And you find somebody is honorable in that village. So he's representing people with jiggers to either a sub-county or a district. And by nature of our politics, the speaker will call him a honorable. Honorable so and so has arrived.
Coming from an area.
Even on a function like a wedding or rumbe, they recognize them. Now you wonder. But in other countries, of course, you can't go to China. There is a man who said, go and think China will be well. If people are thinking, you see our comrade, sir, the general, who died, the late Chango Macho used to say, those who think resist, those who do not surrender. So we need to make sure that our people engage in a lot of thinking, that this mind, when it changes, then the people will be well. But if your mindset is still, my father was this, and was this, you are always lamenting, and the whole Bible has that thing, you know, the book of what? Lamentation. But we need to shift from that book and go to the book of working, the Genesis.
The book of Acts.
Acts, and then...
Ndugu Mtuta, we are sending representatives to the East African Legislative Assembly, to the Pan-African Parliament, and to the ACP, EU, thereabout. And many of these, we think, should carry our agenda. For example, when you glean to the President's speech on his inauguration day, you would imagine that representatives going to the Pan-African Parliament and many of these other continental regional assemblies, this is a message that they would have. But from your thinking, do we have these ambassadors? Do we have these lieutenants? Do we have these Basoso Doti, these evangelists who will actually carry that message to the rest of the continent?
The problem has been the cadre placement in those areas. Because you have a person who is going to the African Parliament, in which case then we should know. I'm sorry, last week I missed Honorable
Cecilia Ogwal,
but I was following the program, and she raised a number of issues, and which really are very crucial, especially when it comes to the African Union, and then the African agenda. The African leadership, the part of the problem we're having in Africa, these things we're talking about, is the cadre, the leadership, the type of, the quality of leaders that we have that are pushing this African agenda, right from the grassroots. He's talking about the districts, but last time we remember we discussed here, how do you have a person at that level who is going to make decisions on behalf of his people if he does not even himself know how to articulate himself when it comes to these issues? We are looking at people who are looking for how to survive, how to get some little money, how, because also how families they need to look after. Now, I think the cadre identification and placement is very key for all the systems in Africa. To know that we are sending someone for this particular assignment, and he has a history of delivering on that issue. So we look at our members of parliament that we send in this. Last time I think we shared a post here when Malema from South Africa talking about the Pan-African Parliament was saying no, there's no way we are going to move Africa if we are not a united force of Africa. Coming to this parliament to forum and we discuss and we have to go home is not going to help Africa. We need to move a level beyond that. In which case there must be sacrifices as countries and as individuals to be able to achieve the African dream. But if we are doing history as usual, I mean work as business as usual, then we are not moving.
Caller, time has run out, and I would just request that, do you have a specific question to ask General Masiko here and Ndugu Asimwe to do the conclusion? And I will ask you, Mututa, also, if you have a question to any of our guests, either General Masiko or Tumine here, sorry, Ndugu Asimwe. Let's hear those questions and they wrap up with those. Akola, I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. My question to General Masiko, because at one time he was in charge of Nali, that is Chankwanzi. And you remember during those days of Mchaka, there was a lot of awareness, actually, consciousness raised. I don't know whether how they would actually reinvent that really we have leadership at all levels and wananchi. Because one of the songs I liked during Mchaka was where they say, vijana wote wamelegea, sasa tufanye mchaka. That all the forces, all the able youth have now relaxed. We need now to awaken them. So this is what I'm seeing in our youth. Because now this takes me to the JKT in Tanzania, Jeshi la Kujenga Taifa, where at
so are you asking the general whether there is anything like a national service of sorts?
Not only national service, youth national service, but even those that have relaxed in the civil service, the politicians, the farmers. Do they have some kind of like mchaka to raise that,
to reinvigorate that spirit?
That spirit.
Okay, Mututa, swali yako?
No, I think not much, but I know, of course, we have always talked with the chief here, and there is more. In fact, there's even a paper I'm trying to work on, which we shall share with him when it comes to this village model. How do we have the leadership at this level?
At the parish development model?
Yes, to get involved, so that this parish model is not as any other project that we have been having in this country. You start a project and you cannot even live to see its first or second birthday.
Okay.
So it's some of the things that we now need to reinvigorate. How do we get these leaders, especially at the parish, trained on what to do, than waiting for the government?
Did you have any for Asimwe?
No, to Comrade Asimwe, of course, ever since he left the Pan-African Secretariat, we've seen clubs dying in schools. I don't know.
The Pan-African clubs dying.
The Pan-African clubs. I don't know whether he has.
No, actually, respond to that in 2 minutes. Then,
yes, I just wanted to appreciate the General and congratulate him like others, because I just met him when he was not a Major General and when he was not a CPC. But I also want to...
And when he was not a Member of Parliament.
And when he was not a Member of Parliament, I think I want to salute him and congratulate him, but also tell the public that I'm his product. Because when I was at the university, it is him and others that I was inviting to talk to the university students. Even when I have been to Kabarore and other districts, we were trying to see that me, I'm a teacher, so I normally want people to really get something. So I want to appreciate General, but I also want to congratulate the people the President appointed, the Vice President, the Prime Minister, and the entire cabinet. We hope if they also get the issues correct, they can help our population to move on. Otherwise, the issue of Pan-Africa, it is a deployment. Now you are deployed in Poto, what? Now I'm in Uganda. Maybe it is to ask those who are in charge of deployment to return us to the Secretariat. We shall do our work. But Napoleon Hill says, if you can't do great things, you do small things in a great way. Whenever you go in schools in those districts, like at the Mountains of the Moon, at this Chebambe, Nyakasura, and where I've been talking to the youth and encouraging them to put that. But here in Kampala it was prominent because you have many schools and you have the media also. So we hope that together we can again revitalize and revive our clubs, of course with the help of the General.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, General. We'll come to you now and you'll respond to the questions.
Good question. Is the hope lost though as CPC? I see I see future in the forces, the leadership right from the command-in-chief have kept the candle of ideological enlightenment for the forces burning. And I've really enjoyed being a CPC because I have come in at a time when that emphasis is in place. So I can't blow my trumpet. That it's because I just stepped in when the mood was right. And I thank the commanders. It's very easy to remember, especially good things. The historicals, they came in to say, oh, if we forget, we shall go offline. And once the army goes offline, many other things get lost. The president in 2009 made a very strategic intervention of patriotic clubs. One may think it's a small thing, but things could have been worse had that intervention not come. And I am once again happy that he gave me opportunity to push that idea with his full support, and that intervention has survived my redeployment. General Mwesije Patrick, we should be inviting him here to discuss more. How can we make it better? Because if the teachers could be mainstreamed into knowing that we need to build the whole person, ideologically first, skills, then attitudes and other things would come in. It goes, of course, hand in hand with the whole reorganization of the education system. So it's not lost. Those two interventions, the army ideology is still on course. The schools, that intervention, I saw it the other day. There is a new initiative, Nice Uganda, where you were you were celebrating a big launch, but it is building on what has been going on.
This is
and you gave me opportunity to thank them. That addition on the other, because it will peak Tebambi. Let them study the gaps in the patriotic education project and fill them so that we have different fronts, common struggle.
Yes.
Lastly, on the village model as the way to go, I mean the parish model.
Development model.
One, there is a concentration of leaders there.
Yes.
You know, we have LC1s, we have movement branches. What we need to start with, ideologically straighten them. Mindset. And when I was looking at the pillars of that model, mindset is the bottom pillar. Now, once these people are really woken up,
yes,
and they take the issue of transformation as the main mission, the country is going to change completely. And that model has worked somewhere. In South Korea, for example, they call it village movement.
New village movement.
And you just get ideas. They are there.
Okay.
People who are already succeeded, who can be role models, then just like we used to do in the Chakamchaka. It was waking up the people. And the other DCs, I have a big thing to fight with you. You could creatively maintain that momentum.
Yes.
And with the parish model, the other DCs must be champions of ideological crusade, make the leaders, sharpen them to be the movers of this program. Because the resources are going to come, but people should not fight over them for honorables' privileges, because everybody is a honorable this, honorable that.
Lord the Councillor, Lord the Mayor, Lord everything. Well, I want to thank you so much. Thank you so much, General Henry Masiko, for having allowed to join us here. General Henry Masiko is a CPC for the UPDF and also a Member of Parliament representing the UPDF in the 11th Parliament. Asante and karibu sana. Thank you for allowing us to tour us this morning. Thank you so much, Ndugu of Asimo Stephen, the RDC for Gomba, and of course my co-hosts here, Akol Mande Amazima and and James Mututa. And thank you, everybody. Our time is up now. Thank you so much, our producer. For God and my country, stay blessed. We'll talk again next week on Friday for Pan African Friday. My name is Jagan Asemakola Ziksoka. Stay safe every day. Good morning and bye-bye.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
What does it mean?